Hello and welcome to this special broadcast on India at the 16th G20 Summit. I'm Munmun Bhattacharya. So let's now discuss the developments that have taken place so far in the G20 Summit. What are the other sessions that are expected to take place? The meeting that the Prime Minister had with Pope Francis, as well as several bilateral meetings that the Prime Minister has had on the sidelines of the G20 Summit in Rome. Joining us, Manjeev Puri, former Indian Ambassador, and Professor Sreeram Chaulia, a foreign affairs expert, is also with us. Professor Chaulia, is India increasingly demonstrating global leadership at the G20, representing the voice particularly of all the developed nations as well as less developed countries on a host of issues, be it COVID-19 pandemic, how to tackle it, how to prevent future pandemics or respond to them, or other issues like economic recovery or enabling smooth international travel or food security, to name a few?
Yeah, very much so, Munmun. In fact, the Twitter feed of the G20 Italy, the host country, said this, today that the summit is starting, and they showed three frames. One had the Ursula von der Leyen, the European, one of the heads of the European institutions. There was one of Joe Biden, the US president, and third one was of our Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And they had this frame on for about half a minute on the tweet, simply to say that the world leaders have arrived. So why did they choose these three and not any others? One, because Prime Minister has gone in person. There are some who are not even there in person. Xi Jinping is not there. The Japanese apparently are not coming, and a few others are missing. President Putin is not there in person. So for the Italian presidency, to have heads of state be there in person itself matters. But even among the ones who are present, there are quite a few who have come. They highlighted Prime Minister Modi along with Biden and with Ursula von der Leyen. So it shows the primacy of India apart from the major Western powers. India is the most wanted country there, much more than even China, because we are fulfilling our commitments to all the G20 goals much faster and in a more responsible way than even China is doing. So I think, like you said, the three pillars on which this summit is happening, they are looking up to India. And India, already our Sherpa, Minister Piyush Goyal, has been there and has been engaging with his counterparts. And the preparation has been such that our agenda items, our suggestions have been already incorporated. Minister Goyal has mentioned that on COVID, for example, India's position is that the vaccine should be treated as global public goods, which means, like the environment, it's a universal need. It should not be confined only to rich countries. So far, the record doesn't show generosity by rich countries. They have hoarded vaccines. They have been very selfish. They are even going for booster doses, third shots. They have not shared it with Africa and with the rest of the world. We have been generous. We had a setback because of our second wave. We are now again restarting our vaccine supply to the needy countries. So we are setting the example on this, and we are saying, so the targets you mentioned, Munmun, if the G20 is saying 40% vaccination by December for the whole world, 70% for the whole world by mid-2022, it's an ambitious target. And for that to be achieved, India will have to play a big role, and I think the world is looking forward. Even Pope Francis, you're mentioning, who met the PM, appreciated the fact that we are doing so much for the world during COVID-19. So that's one. On environment also, our line has been climate finance is important, climate justice, and as Ambassador Puri was saying, in the run-up to the COP26 summit in Glasgow, that's right after the G20, again, India is being looked up to as a provider of solutions. Apart from the issue about carbon emissions and renewables and all those things, one of the things PM is highlighting this time is Indian lifestyle. We are simple people. We don't consume a lot of energy. Since centuries, we've had this tradition, going back to ancient India, of living in consonance with nature, not in opposition to nature. And he's going to promote that Indian lifestyle as something that needs to be adopted. Yoga had been adopted once before, but this is something much bigger, more comprehensive understanding of a way of living, and I think that's what he's going to highlight. And on the economy, our line is the fiscal support, all these monetary measures to keep the economy on the recovery path must be continued. Poor farmers, we are saying there's no way we will be forced to lift subsidies or minimum support prices and for such things for them, because their livelihoods are at stake. This year, PM has been appreciated on the world stage for providing free food for 800 million people during the pandemic. We did that at home. We have now vaccinated 100 crore people, Monmon. So if you add up all that, we've got the statistics, we've got the ideas, and we've got the legitimacy to take the lead at the G20.
Absolutely, and a number of bilateral meetings have also taken place. Each of the points that you've made, Professor Chaulia, are extremely important, and we will go further in depth into them. Professor Chaulia, do you agree with him that this meeting is not just a reflection of India's pluralistic traditions and the fact that there is equal faith and equal respect for all faiths in India, but also the fact that significant issues were discussed, like combating climate change as well as recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, Munmun. In fact, the public feed, we could hear the Pope telling the Prime Minister that he's so thankful for so many things that India is doing, and the fact is, the Pope has run into rough weather with a lot of Western countries where there are very hardline, populist regimes that have closed the door on immigrants and have been violating the Paris Agreement commitments. So the Pope has had a tough time getting across. But with Prime Minister Modi, he has got actually a like-minded world leader, because Prime Minister Modi, completely ticks all the boxes as far as the Pope's values are concerned. And Catholics are safe in India. There's no issue with them, and they are very well protected and living as equal citizens. So I think from that point of view, the invitation is also important. It's good to show the world that we are a multicultural society. And on global issues also, I think the Pope wants more world leaders to take his side and to canvass for these kind of liberal ideas. And I think that's where he's finding a lot of commonality with the PM, because on these issues, it's hard these days to find consensus, and the Pope has often been isolated. So I think the PM's visit, he really appreciated. Joe Biden, the US president, has also met the Pope, and I think the Pope looks for more allies to promote his vision. So if he's coming to India, or if he will come to India, we hope so, it's not to spread Christianity or simply to protect Catholics. It's more importantly to engage with the world's largest democracy on issues that matter to him. The Pope is a moral leader in the world. Prime Minister Modi is a political leader. So I think this is a right kind of combination, and together, if they work for global solutions, for global governance issues, which are very dear to both of them, it will be a win-win, because the Vatican is a moral player, and it matters on the world stage when the Pope says something that he's being supported by the leader of the world's largest democracy.
Let me take the point on combating climate change further with Professor Chaulia. Professor Chaulia, there is an important point that Prime Minister Narendra Modi made, and here, of course, are pictures of the warm exchanges that Prime Minister had with various world leaders. Joe Biden, the US President for one, Emmanuel Macron, French President, was another leader that Prime Minister met, and of course Justin Trudeau. You also saw a picture of Justin Trudeau. Right now you're looking at some warm exchanges between three leaders, President Biden, French President Emmanuel Macron, as well as Justin Trudeau, who has come back to power. Well, let's, on these pictures, if you're staying on the pictures, Professor Chaulia, your thoughts on the characteristic ease that we see in Prime Minister's approach towards various leaders in all settings, bilateral settings or in pull-asides, etc.
Well, he's a master at building personal friendships, famous personal chemistry with world leaders. And even when there are regime changes in a lot of key countries, he continues to straddle the ideological divides of those countries and build these friendships with whoever occupies the seat of a president or a prime minister in a country that is of which has great value to India. So I think that's a real skill. He has said before that he believes that Prime Minister has his own theory of international relations. He says it is built on the basis of trust, Vishwas. And he often says that, until you build trust with your peers, you cannot really get much done as far as solving global problems is concerned. So the bilaterals on the sidelines of G20, or let's say the UN General Assembly debates, these are very, very important, and therefore I think we schedule them in advance and we look up to them. These are not like very structured dialogues with a full delegation level talks and all that, but it helps to simply renew these friendships. And I tell you, the friendships matter. Many times you find that there may be some wrinkles in the bilateral ties with certain countries. Then the fact that the topmost leaders see eye to eye and actually are embracing each other means a lot. And Prime Minister is quite strategic with this. I mean, it's an art he has cultivated over time. And, he is very spontaneous in diplomacy, and that really matters. Even with the Pope, you saw that. And even with the workers, the health workers who were standing for the group photo in Rome, along with the world leaders, the COVID, the ones who were on the frontline workers, he was, chatting with them and, patting them on their backs. This is the world leadership. You need that spontaneity and that warmth. There are some who are very stiff and who cannot really get across, and then you have trouble. And when you have trouble, there's no way to call someone directly on the hotline and say, my friend, let's sort this out. So I think it's very important for forward movement of relations. If one reason why India is respected in the world is not only the policy changes and the achievements and all the transformations we have seen in the last 7.5 years, it's also because of the Prime Minister's personality and the charm, And so it is a charm offensive. Nobody can beat him at this game. And, even I remember when Donald Trump was the US president, he was a very awkward guy to embrace or to hold hands with. But Prime Minister did it for the national interests. So
yes,
I think
absolutely.
This friendship diplomacy or personal diplomacy in itself is one of the pillars of India's rise in the world, and it cannot be discounted. I mean, people sometimes say it's all structural issues and the overlapping interests that really matter to build foreign relations. But the icing on the cake is this personal chemistry, and it cannot be discounted.
Well, Professor Chaulia, your quick comment before we shift focus to pandemic control, preparedness and response on whether you expect India and other countries to announce updated NDCs. India has already said that it seems to be well on track to not just achieve its nationally determined contributions that it had projected in Paris in COP21, but go well beyond that.
India is the only country, Munmoon, PM has mentioned this, that among the G20 members, India is the only country which is on track and which is ahead of schedule to meet its nationally determined contributions to combating climate change. And I think this, there's been some, the ambassador talked about the pressure. The pressure is, they are saying that we should also announce the so-called net zero target date or year. For carbon neutrality. Now, this is where it all comes down to, because many countries are just vaguely announcing targets which are very unlikely to be met. Look at the record of the G20 from 2015 to 2021. If most of them have not been able to meet the target, the modest targets of 2015 Paris Accord, what more ambitious target will they achieve? So I think what we are saying, our Indian position, what Prime Minister is emphasizing is, just get it done first and let us see the, outcome on the ground. In India, we are showing the outcome on the ground. Our renewables, just look at that, there is an expectation, not 40%, even 60% renewable energy may happen by 2030. The pace at which we are investing in solar, wind, and nuclear and other non-fossil fuel based energy sources. So we are on track for a transformation in this country. And I think that's what we want to see elsewhere. So the clamor to have a so-called net zero target is meaningless because, I mean, just to give you one example, with due respect, Australia is a major partner of India, but Australia is one of the biggest fossil fuel producers and exporters in the world. China consumes a lot of fossil fuels and also builds major coal-based power plants all over the world. Now, finally, they're saying we'll stop exporting pollution and we'll stop, building these coal-fired power plants abroad. If you look at individual countries, then they say by 2050 we'll become net zero Is it really realistic what they're talking about? So it's not. I think many of these leaders are looking at a short-term vision. They are not going to be in power. Some of them will not even be alive by 2050 or 2060. So I think PM's vision is different. When India gives its word, we implement. Therefore, we will not give a word that is cheap. We will not give a word that is meaningless or simply a vague, commitment that nobody knows. Like to say, in the long run, all of us are dead.
Yes.
Nothing matters in the long run. Nothing matters. So medium,
Absolutely.
as you said, medium and short is where action is needed. India is already taking action. We want the ones who are pointing fingers at us to show the action on the ground and then talk.
Professor Chaulia, would you say that the Indian interlocutors particularly did a wise job by ensuring, and if you go by G20 Sherpa Piyush Goyal, who said that India has ensured that the text on mutual recognition of vaccine candidates and mutual recognition of vaccines by various countries has been included as part of the health paragraph in the G20 outcome document, which is yet to be unveiled, and not as something which is seen only in the context of facilitating international travel. So is it an intelligent thing that has been done by the Indian interlocutors to give this issue as much relevance and importance that this deserves?
Well, yeah, otherwise what we have is a patchwork. If each country individually decides whether Covishield is acceptable or not, or whether you have to undergo quarantines, and whether it's going to be very bad for economic recovery. In that sense, the two are linked. What we do with the vaccine equity and with the travel equity is linked to the economy, and we do want common standards. Once it is recognized by the WHO, countries should not be raising barriers. We've already had a bit of a battle with the UK over this, and we have come out successful. We made the point and we proved our point. So I think it's important that this is there, but also you see the supply bottlenecks. This is where Ambassador was mentioning, we can ramp up production with more financing and with removal of hurdles to raw materials and intermediate products through which our Serum Institute and others here in India can manufacture for the whole world. And this, there is a smaller, the Quad initiative is there for India to be able to manufacture 1 billion vaccines by next year, and to give it out, on nominal basis or even for free to needy countries in the Indo-Pacific and in the developing world. But Quad is just 4 countries. We want a broader multilateral financing for it. I mean, you mentioned the World Bank and all of them are saying it, but they're not necessarily empowering the champion producer, which is India. So I think our goal should be to attract more financing to ramp up the scale of our production and to be able to meet the needs of the world. We are the most qualified one. I mean, nobody can come anywhere close in terms of our capacity, as Ambassador Puri was saying. We are a vaccine superpower. So at the same time, because of the urgency of and we can actually save the whole planet if we had 4 or 5 years time frame. But because the target is so ambitious, 70% of the world by mid 2022, how are you going to do it without India pumping out, and churning out a lot more than what we are right now? So I think the Europeans are there. The international financial institutions are all connected to the G20. The ones with the money and the financing should come forward. And Japan, of course, is already committed under Quad to support India. And we have already started some of our manufacturing through these plurilateral financing mechanisms. So I think this is the right time, and we do need financing. We do need investment in our pharmaceutical sector. And this is the right moment to be asking for it. We are not doing it out of selfish reasons, because if you don't equip us, if you don't finance us, if you don't strengthen our hand, then how do you expect these targets to be met, or how do you expect these global public goods, vaccines, COVID vaccines, to be available universally? And,
absolutely.
This is the big challenge. If they want equity, they should be promoting India, and that's the only way out.